of nonfiction with Jonathan Soul. So let me put my glasses on here, man. What we're going to talk about is just a vibe that I've been feeling about, I'll just say, the sense that I'm getting in my part of the country. I live in the city. I take a lot of Ubers, take the train, take the bus. And so when you do that, you kind of really have a sense of, what's going on with the underclass, the middle class, the whole bit. Not so much with the upper class. I get a little bit of the sense of the upper class because of, a little bit because of my profession. But what I'm seeing is kind of like the hollowing out of America. That's the way I see it. I see people who are born, grew up here, people who've been here for generations. A lot of them are falling through the cracks. Some people are getting frustrated with the kind of daily grind, hamster wheel vibration of America, and so they're opting out in varying degrees. If you go on YouTube, right, and you type up tiny house, tiny home, right, or tiny house, or just this channel, Tiny Home Tours, you'll see a bunch of people who decided, not to have a regular mortgage and to live in their vans, to live in some of these. One is a bus, the old school RVs, and they've taken a really minimalist approach to life. Now, I haven't spoken to any of these people. From the outside looking in, it seems very zen, right? Minimalist, just getting back to nature. And there've always been people like that. When I was a kid, I was telling my boy this the other day. When I was a kid, I did some labor jobs. When I say kid, I'm talking like 19, 20, 21. And I met this Spanish dude. He was really cool, really hip. He reminded me of a Cheech and Chong kind of vibration. And what he would do is he would travel. He would travel the world. But what he would do is he would come to America. He would work a year, save up all his money, and then travel. I met a woman who was a teacher, and she did the same thing. She would work a year. Matter of fact, there was a sister who worked in a bookstore, a black bookstore, years ago. We're talking 20 years now. And yeah, it was a black bookstore I frequented a lot. So once you become a regular, you can chat up people to get a little personal. And yeah, she was one of those people who would come to America. For her, though, it took 2 years because you don't make a lot of money in the bookstore, and she would just travel. She would travel, and so I get it. But some of these people, and again, I'm not talking about just the people on this channel. I'm saying if you type in on YouTube van life, like I'm doing right now, you get a similar vibration. Not everybody's doing this because they're free spirits. Some people are doing it because they can't afford a mortgage. In my area, a 1-bedroom apartment is 14 grand. 1 bedroom. If you want to live in a city where the fancy people is by the water, now you're talking 18, maybe 2 grand for a studio. So, and I live on the East Coast, so it's not just us, it's other people. That's why folk are moving to Texas and other places, just because things are more affordable. But what if your job doesn't allow you to move to Texas? You having roommates, or you driving Uber on the weekends. Uber. If you go on the internet and you type in Uber drivers that live in their cars, there's several articles that have been written. I've seen articles back to 2019. I've seen articles back further, and it's a lot of Uber drivers. There was one time I met a lady. She had a house coat on, the little bonnet, shower cap or whatever, and the fuzzy slippers. And so I just assumed that she just literally got out the bed and just turned on her app and started driving. But now that I think about it, I don't know. You know what I mean? One time, this lady gave me an Uber ride, and I couldn't put my bags in the back of her trunk because it was full. She could have been sleeping. The point is that regular Americans are falling through the cracks. So so that's the context, right? So now I'm going to give you the other part. If you go into Google, and it's so funny, if you don't think the searching these things, you just think it shit don't exist. If you go into Google and look up like the rates of homelessness in America, you would be surprised. There's a ton of people homeless. So we go from minimalist living to living in your car and you're Uber driver, or because some women are having sexually assaulted some drivers, they go to food delivery. So you go from that to living in your car to now just full blown homelessness. This site right here, let's see, National Alliance to End Homelessness. Here they got a little interactive map, and I'm just clicking over the states, and you can see this is just what's being accounted, so you know the number is probably higher. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the context. Now, I guess this is going to be the Google search episode. Now, in the great words of Dick Gregory, go ahead, punch up on your computer, type in help Afghan refugees, and then space put a state. You could be your state or random state. I searched a ton of states, not all 50, but a bunch of states, and everybody that I searched, except for Mississippi, had like an Afghan refugee program. Now, the one article said that America is expecting 20, I think it's 22,000 refugees. Okay. Um, but it wasn't just America. It was UK. It was other allies, other people that part of that whole effort over in Afghanistan, bringing those people over. So the politicians, and the thing that's so crazy about the Afghan thing is initially they were moving them into like military bases and stuff. You know that a large part of the homeless population in America are veterans. So the veterans, if they fall on hard times, they just can't go live on a military base? Who knew? So they're moving these Afghan people into the military bases. In some cases, they're moving into hotels. Some cases, they're moving them into like HUD type housing. So all of these resources are coming to bear to the Afghan refugees that are being brought here. But the Americans are, by degrees, falling to the bottom. So when I look at the stuff about the Ukraine or the stuff, I'm like, I don't give a. Our priorities are messed up. Now, was the infrastructure plan supposed to help? Sure, but I haven't seen anything being implemented. Have you? I remember under Obama, when he passed some infrastructure spending, you could go. I remember specifically there was like a little piece of the highway downtown that had a little sign that says, I forget what it was called, but it was late. It had a little sign that says, funded by Obama's plan. Obama, at least he had the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which they ended up calling Obamacare, I guess to be glib, but I'm not seeing none of that shit coming out of Biden's administration. There's an article that I was going to bring up. I mean, I have a background in tech, and so I found this interesting. Millions of U.S. households are now part of the new Affordable Internet Program. But on the real, this program was basically a program I think that got started under Trump. They just got relabeled. Basically, when the pandemic hit, the government came up with some money in a program to put people online so that they could, do school online and I guess look for jobs or whatever. And so it was like it's called the Emergency Broadcast Benefit, and that came out December 9th, 2021. 2021. Oh, maybe that was under what's the name? But anyway, maybe that was under Biden. Let me see. Looks like they just relabeled the program. The point is that it is possible for the government to do programs that benefit regular Americans. I'm just not seeing enough of it. That's all I'm saying. You know, I mean, when Trump said let's close the borders so we sort everything out, that was a really stupid way to put it, but he wasn't wrong, in my opinion. Now, am I a pro-Trump person? Hell no, of course not. Trump turned out to be, I mean, I always knew he was racist, but turned out to be a fascist, a real fascist, when he was having everybody, run up in the Capitol and try to stop the election from counting. That was a coup. That was like a real coup. That was like a very dangerous time in our country. So he's absolutely dangerous, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. That's for people who know what analog clocks are. If you're digital, you might not get it. All right. Let me talk about some other stuff that came to my mind. So we talked about Americans falling through the cracks. This is a very serious situation. All of us, our responsibility starts with ourselves, of course, and then our family and friends. So one of the things that was happening under Trump, at least, was there was a lot of pressure to be put on businesses to pay a higher minimum wage, right? So, the fight for 15 was like a big deal because, minimum wage had been the same. I think it was like $7 or something like that for years, federal minimum wage. So on the one hand, it's groovy that people would actually be able to get a bonus, not even a bonus, but get paid closer to what the value they bring to the company. Because I'm going to tell you, before times got better, I worked at a coffee house. And I had a little raggedy piece of shit car. But I love you, Whitey. My car was white. I love you, Whitey. And God rest his soul, the transmission died. Anyway, so I had to drive to the place. Parking cost me $8. I made, I think, maybe $9 an hour. I was working a register because I was too slow to make coffee. I tried, man. I tried. I can make coffee fine at the house, but I could. And so they put me on the register. And I guess I got a little bit of personality or whatever. I wasn't grumpy. So I would make like $80 a day in tips. I couldn't keep it, of course, which is more than, the couple, it was a lot. Anyway, the point is that most of the people that worked at the coffee house had two jobs. And one lady who had children had had three. She had two full-time jobs and a job that she worked just on Saturday. And so Sunday was the day that she didn't work at all. But that was the only day. This woman was probably in her middle 30s. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. On the flip side, you got the Afghans coming over here. And, God bless them, the ones that make it over. They're being taken care of. They're being taken care of. So the news is not going to tell you. You got to go search. That's why I told you, just go look at the refugee programs. And they're being taken care of. They're being given food. They're being given shelter, clothing, stipend, in many cases, jobs, some cases, vehicles, other equipment, things of that nature. While Americans, if you don't pay depending on the state that you're in, if you get behind on your rent, you're going to court for the eviction procedure. So, the politicians really have their priorities fucked up, to be perfectly frank. And so it's very hard for me to have any kind of compassion for foreign policy that would take care of foreigners over your own people. I mean, I don't think that's I don't think that's a conservative or a liberal. How can charity begins at home be conservative or liberal? It does. That's just common sense. That's just like that's sustainability. It's not conservative or liberal to help other people and not your own folks. Now, of course, if you don't see the Americans that got to work two jobs as your own people, and you see some benefit in bringing these other folk over, then obviously that's a different story. I wanted to talk about the 15. So on the one hand, there are some companies that are increasing the minimum wage because they got to, because a lot of people are quitting. People call it the Great Resignation. You could say that. There have been a lot of people who've kind of re-evaluated their lives and stuff during the pandemic. But to be perfectly frank, a lot of people lost their jobs and they went to go drive Uber. You know, when you listen to the news, it sounds real romantic and stuff, and work-life balance. And in America, if you don't make a certain amount of money, you're going to die in a ditch. Period. Period. Now, sometimes you might make it through earnings. Sometimes you might make it through hustle. Sometimes you make it through social services, but you need money. The problem I have is when you take taxpayer money and give it to foreigners as opposed to taking care of the Americans first. And it's really hard to kind of argue against that point. You could talk about compassion. I told y'all the story before about my Uber driver. You know, he had been over here for some time, and I think he was on the plane, and or the recent shipment or whatever. And you know, he was saying that he thought we could, have military bases. You know, I mean, we could keep soldiers over in Afghanistan with that. We should have never left. We can afford to do that. I said, what do you mean? When you say we, I kind of stopped him. When you say we, you mean the American government? He says, yes, because he considered himself an American, I was like, okay. I said, we can't afford that. And I pointed to him as he was driving me to work, all of the old infrastructure that he was passing over, the boom, 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 the potholes in the streets and the old buildings and all kind of stuff. I said, we can't afford that. We can't. How can we afford that when the educational system is such that your kid will spend 12 years in an American public school system, and the only thing they're qualified for when you graduate is fucking Starbucks? 12 years? It take you 12 years to learn how to read, write, and count? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's why, so many online teaching platforms, because the educational system is like they make you go, but but the benefit is really almost like they're just warehousing your kids. And then when you add the part about they got cops in there, got the hands on the trigger, you know what I mean? They got no compassion for the kids. I don't even want to talk about the abuse that they do. So now it's the play warehousing your kids and not teaching them something that they can use to make a living when they get out. And then there's the danger of being assaulted by a police officer or being, getting a record. There was a time when, oh yeah, we fell off the bus, kind of a thing. I mean, that could get you arrested. So, you know what I mean? It's just like but when when the politicians run for office, they talk about abortion or gay rights or things that real emotional stuff, but they don't talk about potholes in the streets. They don't talk about maybe having your kid graduate with some kind of certification from high school where they could make a living for themselves if you can't afford college. It could be a nursing certificate. It could be a IT certificate. The generation before me in my high school, the high schools had shop. And there was two kinds of shop that you could have. You could have wood shop, where they would teach you how to build furniture and stuff like that. Or you could have automotive shop, where they teach you how to fix cars. And in my high school, I was told that the kids who excelled in these programs, they could get what you call an apprenticeship, and they could join. They could become an apprentice to like a plumber, say, if they had a plumbing program. Some schools did, or a mechanic, or a carpenter, or something like that. And so they could graduate, and then upon graduation from high school, you could get a job, with a particular union or an outfit or something. Also in my high school, and when I was going there, this is my generation, they had like a work study program where once you was a junior or a senior, you could go get an internship at a government because, uh, close to the city. So you could get a job part-time in like a federal or a state government office, typing, filing, paperwork, shit like that. Um, And so if you were good at it, you built relationships, and a lot of times they told you, hey, when you graduate from high school, come on back, and we'll bring you in as whatever the entry level. And so in my area, that built a lot of the black middle class. Under Reagan, if I remember correctly, all of that shit was like done away with. So to me, of course, in a perfect world, we would bring these programs back, and then kids would have something to do, besides the Twitter and the TikTok and everything. I'm just not seeing it happening. But when we hear people on the news talk about, Ukraine, they're gonna invade. Who gives a fuck? Y'all not doing shit for us here. So why should we care about what you're doing over there? And if you talk to older people, it's probably a lie that the U.S. is telling anyway. Remember the lie they told us about weapons of mass destruction? Went into Iraq, killed 2 million people. For what? Talk that shit about Gaddafi. Went in there, murdered Gaddafi. You're not supposed to, for y'all who don't know, when you're doing a military operation, you're not supposed to just kill a head of state like that. You're supposed to take him. He's supposed to go to trial, the whole bit. They murdered him like a dog. And Iraq and Libya has been fucked up. I mean, yeah, Libya, yeah, have been fucked up ever since. So it's probably a lot that the U.S. is telling. Matter of fact, on my Twitter, if you go to Jonathan Soul, at Jonathan Soul on Twitter, you'll see that the Ukraine defense minister is saying, ain't nobody invading. It's hype. Don't worry about it. Now, the president of Ukraine at the one time is saying, hey, America, chill. On the other hand, we need weapons. You know what I mean? So I know what he's trying to do. You know what I mean? Is there tension between the former Soviet countries and Russia? Absolutely. Is it our business? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not when you got mad homeless in America. Not when you got kids that graduate from high school and can't do shit in terms of take care of themselves. I did a podcast earlier. Y'all can go back on my YouTube channel and check, or jonathansoul.com and let check, where most Americans can't afford an apartment on one salary. You need two people for a 1-bedroom apartment. And I know that's the case. My last apartment, I'll tell you straight up, it was $13,000 for 1 bedroom. $1,300, I'm sorry. $1,300 a month for 1 bedroom. And some people, depending on where you are, you might say, God damn, that's cheap. Started out almost half of that. So all I'm saying is that when because I'm a news hound, and when you move and you look at your timelines and everything, you get a sense of like a priority like Ukraine. That's not our priority. Our priority is to make sure that Americans don't get left behind. And I'm going to be honest with you. It was nice that Trump sent out these payments and stuff like that. But if you know your history, W. Bush did the same thing. That wasn't like a new invention. Stimulus packages have been sent out before, and they don't do it out of the kindness of their heart. They do it because they know the country is falling apart. The funny thing is, it just seems like the Republicans don't give a fuck, which But we as voters, when we vote, we don't think about potholes, having enough employment in my community so I don't have to worry about getting carjacked, somebody breaking into my people's house while they're away. We don't think, we think about the hot button emotional issues that they tell us. So we just have to kind of be aware when we're being manipulated. I'm going to try one more time to get back to this $15 an hour. Okay, so $15 an hour, that Fight for 15, that was something that was popular in my area. And so in the places that were targeted was like some restaurants and places like Starbucks. Well, I found this article on Singularity Hub. It's like a place that has some interesting technology news. And you can see Flippy, the fast food robot, just got hired in 100 restaurants. So the article basically talks about this company called Miso Robotics, right? They have this robotic arm that flips burgers and does fries and things of that nature. And so they have a pilot program where they're going to put it in 100 White Castle restaurants. So what does that do to your Fight for 15? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's coming. I told you about I think I mentioned about the China. Maybe I didn't. So China, all this is about automation. China has a company called Baidu that's launching self-driving taxis in densely populated Shenzhen. So Shenzhen is one of the really big cities in China, and they're launching a self-driving taxi service. Let's see here. Baidu has set up 50 different pickup and drop-off locations in Shenzhen, a city of 13 million people. Self-driving taxis can be summoned through the smartphone app called Apollo Go. So the tension is interesting. On the one hand, pressure is being put on businesses because of COVID. A lot of people decided to quit. They found other opportunities elsewhere, or people got sick, or even maybe the workers didn't like the COVID policy, right? So you have a shortage of workers on the one hand. Demand has changed because people are living more frugally now. Let's be honest. One thing we learned about the pandemic in 2020 is you can never have enough savings. I used to joke that you didn't need savings, you needed a farm. You needed a farm, man. You know what I mean? And so people are being more frugal. So demand is not like that no more. But you need enough people to satisfy the demand that exists. And one way is through automation. And that kind of is the answer to the rising cost of wages and health benefits and things of that nature. Because when you get Fight for 15, the company is not just paying you 15, they got to pay the health insurance company maybe 20. You know what I mean? They got to pay all of these taxes and stuff. So it's not just $15 an hour in terms of what it costs the company to bring you on. But a robot don't call out sick. A robot don't join unions so they can demand better pay. And so that's coming, and it's not very far away. The beautiful thing is, because of the internet and just the age we live in, you can go online or you can go to Udemy. You can look up, all kinds of IT training courses that, like, last time I checked, you can get a course for like $12. And these are taught by people who are certified, and then you can take exam prep, because to get an IT, a lot of times, to get an entry-level position, what you need is a certificate, like a certification. And so you can get the training, you can get books, and you can get, software and join, things like that for a little or nothing, much cheaper than college. The certification exam might cost you $100 or a little bit more. But once you get into IT and you start building your skills, you can make a decent living. And guess what? you can make a decent living remotely. So there's an answer. It's not just all doom and gloom like the robots are coming, the robots are coming. You know what I mean? It's not just that. It's an opportunity. You know, I'll say this lastly. I wanted to talk about this is such a jump. I want to talk about exoplanets, which are habitable planets outside our solar system. But I guess I had to get to that to another show because I've been talking for a while. Last thing I want to say is in every stressful circumstance, it's an opportunity. In America, it's an opportunity, even though they're saying, fuck the citizens who were born here and let's bring these new folks in and give them every advantage. If that's the game, then let's play. I'm not going to vote for people who with that. That's number one. Number two, maybe I can provide some services for the people who they're bringing in. So, you know, there's opportunities out there. And don't think that it's, I got to have math and science and everything. Probably not. I do IT work and I was terrible in math. And if you are, just use a calculator. You know what I mean? Shit, the shit is out there. Don't be the one to tell yourself no. Just go for it. Let somebody else tell you no and then keep trying until you get it. But I think that we shouldn't look at this as like doom and gloom. We should look at this like a changing of the seasons. You know what I mean? When the leaves start turning and the flowers start closing up, that's not the end of the world. That just means fall is coming. So when fall comes, what you do, you change your clothing. You might do some vitamins, whatever. You just behave a little differently to accommodate the season, to protect yourself. And so I think as this in this situation, when we have weak leadership, come on now. You really think Kamala Harris got anything to say to Putin? Biden barely got anything to say to him, and he done dealt with him before. So, we're living in a season where we have weak leadership, open borders, failing education system. In these moments, there's opportunities for us to give ourselves skills, manage our money better, take advantage of different markets like the stock market, real estate market, things of that sort. If you're an entrepreneurial type, you can sell services and things like that online. There's always opportunities in any season. We just have to make sure we make ourselves of it, give ourselves a chance to prosper. This is John the Soul, johnthesoul.com. You can go to my website and you can look at the interviews I've done in the past with comic book creators. And I've also talked to, science fiction writers, as a futurist that I've talked to. I just enjoy these kinds of thoughtful conversations with people. And if you're a comic book head, what's different about my interviews is that I'm a 50-year-old man and I actually give a damn about life, not just about comic books. So I asked these folks about life. I asked one brother who was a bouncer in New York City for about 10 years. I talked to him about police brutality. I had a conversation with a beautiful woman who's an illustrator about loss and mourning. I had a great conversation with a sci-fi writer about Trump when he was running the last time in 2016 or whatever. All these brilliant conversations that started out talking about comic books or sci-fi, whatever. But we branched out into life, family, and sometimes philosophy, things and that's what makes my show different. That's what makes my show different. So anyway, I love you guys. Hope all your dreams come true. John the Soul, johnthesoul.com. Take care of yourself. Wear your goddamn mask. I would say get your shots, but that's controversial to some people. It wasn't controversial when we had to get it when we was in elementary school. It's okay for the kids, but not us. Is that what we doing? Experiment on the kids, really? I love you guys. Peace.